Welcome to BRM Unboxed, Episode 4, BRM and Governance. My name is Carolynn Chalmers. I'm a corporate governance practitioner and a strategic IT advisor with experience across many industries in executive and governing body roles. My professional credentials include being a designated professional CIO from South Africa's Institute of IT Professionals and ISACA Seagate, certified in the governance of enterprise IT, and of course a BRM CBRM, which is certified in the business relationship management professional. I'm also involved in the development of ISO standards, and of particular importance is being a co-editor of the developing standard for the governance of organizations, ISO 37000. But let's have a look at governance. The first component in our box today is governance. My experience and international research has shown that there are very many different opinions as to what makes up this thing called governance. So let's unpack it a little further. Compliance and risk. So many in the world say that governance is the same as compliance, particularly in the United States of America. The United States believe that governance is essentially taken to be compliance by the organization and the governing body of that organization to fiduciary accountabilities as stipulated in law. Across the world, though, there is a different approach, one where governance is of a higher order than mere compliance. It should be what the organizations should be achieving rather than the minimum that they must achieve. Let's take a simple example to better understand that difference. Children generally must go to school. This is a compliance requirement. It's a must requirement. But really, when the children go to school, we want them to do their best. This is the intention of governance. We want our organizations to not only do what they must do, but we want them to do their best while they're doing what they must do. You may have heard of the acronym GRC. Let's look at governance and compliance in relation to risk. Certainly, there are risks associated with compliance, both opportunities that demonstrate the advantages of compliance and threats when the organization decides to be non-compliant. Just think about your tax collector. What are the risks, though, relating to governance? What are the risks of not doing what you should be doing over and above compliance? Now, mostly these risks relate to the organization's stakeholders and their understanding of what is acceptable, what organizations should be doing. There are many examples of the impact of stakeholder or shareholder activism. Let's have a look at the New Age thinking, 21st century thinking. Profit, people, and planet. The most important of these leads us to the next part we unbox, the overwhelming global demand for responsible organizational behavior when generating profits. Stakeholders are demanding that organizations are responsible stewards of people and the planet when making profits. This relates to continued human viability and organizational sustainability and shared prosperity. This, of course, is a balancing act between short-term losses for long-term gains. The second part of the box we take out is called leadership. It's important to understand the governance part because it's an indicator of the mind and motivation of our leaders. And we know that effective leadership is critical for effective organizations. I'm sure that each and every one of you can provide us with examples from your own experiences of where ineffective leaders have negatively impacted on organizations. If you'd like to share these for others to learn from? Please comment below. Building on this, the success of relationships in a business is also dependent on effective leadership. Let's have a look. So, thinking about the tone from the top, solid BRM is founded essentially on solid governance. So we have unpacked the essential leadership parts for effective BRM and why this is important. Now, let's have a look at management. Business relationship management. What we have unboxed. We've unboxed leadership and its parts, the importance for effective BRM. But what about management in business relationship management? Peter Drucker, the management guru, provides clarity on the division of responsibilities between leadership and management. Let me paraphrase. Leadership is about doing the right things, says Peter Drucker, and management is about doing those things in the right way. So let's go back to governance. Essentially considering an organization from top down. Let's put management there. The further away from the governing body we move through the layers of the organization, the more management takes up the activities. In BRM, we can see lives lives towards the lower half, although it operates at all levels. BRM does things in the right way, in the context of specific organizations' right things to do. Does that make sense? But BRM needs to be mindful of the distinctions between governance and management, because in its activities, it operates across the whole continuum. BRM operates across the whole continuum. Let's look at this more closely. How do BRM and governance work together? So let's have a look at this. BRM, management, leadership, and governance. BRM assists the governing body in deciding on the right things, to correctly interpret the external context and emerging future context, the foresight, determining value objectives, and actively engaging with stakeholders. For example, shareholders, customers, suppliers, to understand what they are wanting from the organization. Also avoiding value leakage through inaccurate interpretations of stakeholder needs and expectations. They also determine the parameters within which the organization should operate. The governing body determines the right things to do. None of this happens by chance. They are mindful and purposeful activities. The governing body assists the organization's leaders to align with the governing body in the determination of the organization's strategy. Avoid leakage between this interpretation, between interpreting what the governing body wants to do and the external context for the organization to determine strategy for the organization. The business relationship management assists leadership to interpret the strategy and the right things to be done, and interpret it into the right way of doing things. Converging supplier services with business partner demands. BRM spans the governance and leadership and management layers of the organization. If we don't get it right at the governance layer, the pains and missed opportunities filter through the entire organization. Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you heard about this before? Of course you have. Those of you who are familiar with the BRM Institute body of knowledge know that I'm describing in summary the business provider alignment model. We can have a look at the image here. This model not only shows the context, but also shows the relationship between governance and management and the responsibilities of each. Strategic context and IT strategy should really tell the organization the right things to do. The entire portfolio of IT and other organizational activities should tell the organization the right way to do these things. What should leaders do in the context of good governance? Let's have a look at management. Management, leadership, and governance. 1. Establish the right culture. Entrench a culture of collaboration and shared responsibility. This is the 21st century way of thinking. To provide the organization guiding principles and policies on the right things to do. Second of all, decide on the right operating model. Be firm and decisive. This is the way it's going to work around here. Ensure that there is clarity of expectations, targets, measurements, and consequences. And then entrench continual improvement, making sure that we are acting on results. Of course, none of this happens by chance. We need BRM capabilities and competencies throughout. We need value management, engagement, and relationship building. We need these principles applied throughout. We need value defined. We need it agreed and understood. We need it measured, optimized, and effectively communicated over time. What should our leadership do? Our leadership should unpack BRM over the governance, leadership, and management layers. Establish an effective BRM competency in their organization. They should ensure that the competency is equipped on the right things to be done, and the BRM Institute body of knowledge is an effective source for this information and this know-how. Provide these guiding parameters within the BRM activities within which the BRM activities should operate, and equip the competency with the ability to apply these parameters in their organization to determine the right way in which to do things for your organization, for your particular organization. Have the right things in the right way for your organization. Resource this competency with the ability to innovate, adapt, and in an agile manner entrench long-term value for the organizations. Leaders should do more than just comply with laws and rules. Leaders should govern. And finally, leaders should make sure that this investment is sustainable through the staff churn, the changes in the organizational business, and the changes in the external environment within which the organization operates. The heart of a successful business relationship management capability is committed leadership and effective governance practices. Thank you very much. I hope you found this governance and BRM box interesting, and it's unpacking, informative. If you look below, you'll find I have provided a link to a very useful cheat sheet to help you explain this to others and talk of engaging with others. The next box we'll be unpacking is emotional intelligence. For some, that may be a horror show, but don't forget to like and leave your comments. Leave your comments below. Thanks very much.